Welcome, everyone. Today, I have an incredible story for you. One that's full of power, persuasion, and high-stakes negotiation. It's about a recent intense meeting between former U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. This isn't just about politics. It's about leadership, tough decisions, and bold conversations that could change the world. But here's the best part. This story will boost your English skills. You'll hear real conversations between world leaders, learn how to express strong opinions, and pick up powerful phrases used in political discussions. So get ready. Listen closely, pay attention to the details, and let's dive into this gripping story. Part 1. The Arrival and First Words. It was a cold morning in Washington, D.C. The sun was shining, but the tension in the air was clear. Zelensky's plane had just landed. He stepped out, wearing his usual military-style outfit. He looked exhausted. His country was still at war, and he had traveled nearly 10 hours to get here. But this meeting was too important to miss. He needed something from Trump. And Trump? He wanted something too. At exactly 10:30 a.m., Zelensky arrived at the White House. Cameras flashed as Zelensky walked in. Journalists whispered, trying to guess what would happen inside. Meanwhile, in the Oval Office, Donald Trump was already waiting. He sat back in his chair, his usual confidence showing, a small smirk on his face. When Zelensky entered, Trump stood up, walked over, and shook his hand firmly. Trump, smiling. "Mr. President, welcome back." "Long flight, huh?" Zelensky, nodding. "Yes, long flight. But I'm here because this is important." They both sat down. The cameras were rolling. The world was watching. Trump leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. He was in control, or at least he thought he was. "Trump, so, tell me, Volodymyr, how are things going in Ukraine?" Zelensky, "Well, as you know, we are still at war. We need more support from the U.S. We need weapons, financial aid, and sanctions on Russia." And this is where things started to get interesting. Trump didn't answer right away. Instead, he smirked again, looking at Zelensky carefully before speaking. "Trump, you know, Volodymyr, a lot of people say this war could have been avoided. Maybe if you had negotiated with Putin differently, we wouldn't be here today." Zelensky's face changed. His expression turned serious. "Zelensky, with all due respect, Mr. President, we did negotiate. But Putin doesn't keep his word." For a moment, the room went silent. The tension was so thick you could almost feel it. Trump tapped his fingers on the desk, then chuckled slightly. "Trump, well, I like leaders who know how to make a deal. And I believe every war has a deal somewhere in it." Zelensky leaned forward. He wasn't here to play games. "Zelensky, and I believe every war has a victim. My people are dying. This isn't just politics for me." Trump looked at him for the first time. He didn't smile. Part 2. The tension escalates. As the meeting went on, the atmosphere grew more tense. President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance began to openly show their frustration. Vance, Vice President of the U.S. "Mr. President, with all due respect, it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and argue about this in front of the American media. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict." Zelensky didn't back down. "Zelensky, first of all, during a war, everyone has problems, even you. But you have a nice ocean and don't feel it now. One day you will. God bless you that you don't have war. Trump, interrupting. You don't know that. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. The conversation then took a personal turn, shifting the focus to Zelensky's attire. Since the Russian invasion, Zelensky had always worn his signature military-style clothing. But now, this choice was becoming a topic of debate. Brian Glenn, a commentator allied with Trump. Mr. President, don't you think it's disrespectful to meet the President of the United States without wearing a suit? Zelensky, I will wear a suit when the war is over. My clothing represents the struggle my people are going through. Despite his explanation, the criticism didn't stop. The debate highlighted cultural differences and expectations in high-profile meetings. Trump, right now, you don't have the cards to play with us. You need to start gaining some leverage. Zelensky, I'm not playing cards. I'm serious. I am the president of a country at war. The conversation grew more intense. Both sides refused to back down. Trump, you're gambling with millions of lives. You're risking World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to this country. A country that has supported you more than many people think we should have. Vance, have you ever even said thank you? You're wrong. The meeting was supposed to strengthen alliances and discuss critical support, but instead, it turned into a tense exchange filled with misunderstandings and personal criticism. The growing tension highlighted just how complicated international diplomacy can be during wartime. Part 3, the final showdown. The room was filled with tension. Zelensky was frustrated. He had traveled thousands of miles, only to be challenged and criticized. Trump and his team weren't making things easy. But Zelensky wasn't about to back down. He was the leader of a country at war, and he had to stand firm. Trump, listen, Vladimir, let's be honest. The U.S. has given you more support than any other country, billions of dollars. And yet, you're here asking for more. Where does it end? Zelensky looked directly at Trump. His voice was calm but firm. Zelensky, Mr. President, this isn't about money. This is about survival. My people are dying every day. Russia is attacking us. If we stop fighting, we lose our country. Trump smirked and tapped his fingers on the table. Trump, and if you keep fighting, what happens? More war, more destruction. Look, I don't like endless wars. I want peace. Zelensky's expression changed. Zelensky, then help us. Give us the support we need to win. Trump shook his head. Trump, win? You really think you can win against Putin? And there it was, the real issue. For a moment, the room went silent. Everyone knew Trump's relationship with Putin was complicated. Some believed he respected Putin, while others thought he feared him. Trump, Putin is a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. Maybe instead of fighting him, you should talk to him. Zelensky couldn't believe what he was hearing. Zelensky, talk to him? We tried. He doesn't listen. He wants to destroy Ukraine. Trump leaned forward, lowering his voice. Trump, look, I can talk to Putin. If I were president, this war would already be over. You know that. Zelensky shook his head. He had heard this before. Trump always claimed he could end the war, but he never explained how. And there it was. This meeting wasn't just about Ukraine. It was about Trump's political future. He wanted to win the next election. He wanted to prove to the world that he was the only one who could control leaders like Putin. Zelensky felt frustrated. He needed real help, not politics. The conversation was over. Zelensky had made his case. Trump had made his point. And in the end, Nothing had really changed. But one thing was clear. Trump saw himself as the deal maker. Zelensky saw himself as a fighter. And Putin? He was waiting, watching, ready to make his next move. As Zelensky walked out of the White House, journalists rushed toward him. "Reporter, Mr. President, how did the meeting go?" Zelensky took a deep breath. He looked at the cameras and said, "I came here for help. I hope America still stands with Ukraine." Then he walked away. But this story is not over. The war is still happening. The politics are still unfolding. And the future? Still uncertain. But one thing is for sure, the world is watching. If you enjoyed this story and learned something new, make sure to subscribe.